I was bored while participating in an activity, and sent a message to my online dating partner. Baby, I miss you. I especially miss your bird. In the next second, the message was displayed on the big screen on the stage. Gavin, the new powerful figure in the Beijing social circle, was projecting. I looked at him in shock. But he calmly said, "Sorry. I'll reply to my wife first." Well, I'll show it to you tonight. Gavin has a naturally cool temperament, and is noble on stage. He explained with a smile. I really have a bird. It is indeed a bird. But it can be seen that none of the audience present believed it. After half a month of overtime work, I finally had a day off. The company notified a team-building activity. Gavin, the new powerful figure in the Beijing social circle, held a small banquet. Small and large enterprises scrambled to get the admission quota. My skinflint boss naturally couldn't be an exception. Sally, you have performed well in business recently. I'll give you this opportunity. Just as I was about to go to the subway station, I was stopped by my boss. The flesh on his flabby and obese face trembled with excitement. I twitched the corner of my mouth and cursed him 100 times in my heart. But this guy was completely unaware. He patted me on the shoulder and looked pleased. You kid. You are quite lucky. Do you want this kind of luck? But as a humble worker, I didn't dare to workplace. So when the alarm clock rang for the 10th time, I finally got up. Even though I poured out my bitterness to my online dating partner last night, and saw abdominal muscle photos from various angles, my resentment was still heavier than that of a ghost. At the activity site, I was so bored. Gavin on the stage was giving a speech. He had a handsome face and a cold temperament. Next, I'll share with you my upcoming development blueprint. At Gavin's signal, the assistant beside him opened the big screen behind him and connected to Gavin's phone. I shifted my numb buttocks. My thoughts had already flown out of the window. There were several fluffy little sparrows perching on the branches. Round like balls. Extremely lovely. Speaking of which, my online dating partner also raises birds. So I sent him a message. Baby, I miss you. I miss your bird even more. In the next second, suppressed exclamations came from around me. I looked up in confusion. The big screen was connected to Gavin's phone, and the popped-up chat dialog box was exactly the message I had just sent. My mind went blank. I stared in shock at Gavin on the stage with wide eyes. But he calmly said, "Sorry. I'll reply to my wife first." Well, I'll show it to you tonight. At the same time, I also received his message on my phone. Immediately, I turned ashen. Gavin has a naturally cool temperament and is noble on stage. He explained with a smile. I really have a bird. It is indeed a bird. A cockatiel that can jump onto his hand and sing. But it can be seen that none of the audience present believed it. My boss was as gossipy as a fat chaw. I didn't expect that Gavin plays so wild. He is indeed a powerful figure. The phone was like a red-hot branding iron. I quickly stuffed it into my bag and forced a smile at my boss. I suddenly couldn't see clearly just now. I'll go back first. Goodbye, boss. After saying that, I lifted my skirt and ran away like the wind. I ran as if there were fierce ghosts chasing after me. When I ran out of the venue, Gavin also finished his speech. The phone in my bag rang nonstop. I didn't stop running and still ran very fast. It wasn't until the moment the subway door closed that I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Is my online dating partner Gavin? What kind of novel plot is this? Back in my rental house, I didn't even take off my coat and directly threw myself onto the bed. My thoughts were like a tangled mess. From the background decoration in the pictures Gavin sent me before, it's not hard to notice that he is a rich person, plus his daily life of playing with and raising birds all day. I just thought he was a carefree rich second generation. But he is a new powerful figure with real power. It would be extremely easy for him to crush an ordinary worker like me. As the saying goes, being with a monarch is like being with a tiger. Breaking up early is better. Taking out my phone, I quickly typed the line, "We are not suitable. Let's forget it." Before sending it, a video came in first. A cute yellow cockatiel was standing on Gavin's slender and fair fingers and singing. At the end, there was also a sentence, "Mom. Love you. Gavin, I taught it well. Right? Praise me." His arrogant look is hard to associate with the cold man on the stage today. Melted by the cuteness, I followed my heart, deleted the typed words, and sent several kissing expressions. "Mom loves you, ah ah ah. Online dating is not important. I like watching birds." And next day, as soon as I arrived at the company, the incident at the banquet yesterday had spread. Just after punching in and sitting at my workstation, gossipy female colleagues surrounded me. "Sally, you also saw the message from Gavin's wife, right? Is there any follow-up?" Facing a pair of eyes glowing green, a layer of cold sweat crept up my back. I took an imperceptible step back. I suddenly felt ill yesterday and went home first. Disappointed sighs rang out around. "We were hoping that you could bring back some news from the front line of eating melons." I forced a dry laugh and my eyes wandered. "Yes. I've been weak and sickly since I was a child. I can't be invited to such occasions in the future." As the crowd around dispersed, I breathed a sigh of relief and slumped back into my chair. Then I was amused by my own over-anxious look. In our small company, people like Gavin are not people we can see whenever we want. As long as it's well hidden. Who can know? After some psychological construction, I took out my phone again and happily started flirting with Gavin. Online dating is just for fun. Why take it seriously? Isn't being handsome enough? Just after the last quarter was busy. I've been so idle recently that birds seem to grow on my head. So I have more time to chat with Gavin. Just as I was immersed in the pleasure of chatting and dating while slacking off at work, my boss's loud voice echoed through the company. "It's truly an honor for Gavin to give us this opportunity." Gavin? Which Gavin? The door was pushed open and a group of people walked in a mighty way. After the boss's fat body moved away, the man with an innate noble temperament was revealed behind him. Gavin. Sure enough. Retribution comes so soon. I tried my best to stay calm and sit in place, burying my head in front of the computer and pretending to be working hard. A dull pain came from my shoulder. The boss's deep voice exploded in my ear like a death knell. "Gavin. This is Sally, who will be responsible for this project in the future. I haven't seen him value me so much at ordinary times." I cursed the boss thousands of times in my heart again. I slowly stood up from the chair and deliberately pinched my throat. "Hello. Gavin." Gavin once said that he hates affected women the most. Sure enough, his eyes didn't stay on me. He coldly ummed and continued to follow my boss to the conference room. My mood in the morning was more exciting than a roller coaster. I rubbed my weak calf and was about to sit back. A keychain on the table fell to the ground due to my movement. The crisp sound of jingling was particularly abrupt in the quiet office. Gavin stopped and looked back. His eyes stayed on the keychain on the ground. A handmade yellow parrot, with 2 blushes on the cheeks and a playful curl of hair on the head. Looked exactly the same as the one Gavin raised. I quickly squatted down, picked up the keychain and met Gavin's eyes. The alarm bells rang loudly in my heart. This is a keychain I made by myself. After I finished it, I sent him a 9-shot series from all angles with a sense of accomplishment. "Can you let me see your keychain?" Gavin came in front of me again, with a hint of expectation in his eyes. My heart jumped to my throat. "Sally, Gavin is talking to you." The boss kept winking at me. Reluctantly, I stretched out my hand. "Did you make it yourself?" Gavin cleared his throat and tentatively asked me. I picked it up at the second and marked it. "Do you like it too, Gavin?" I forced myself to stay calm and put the keychain back in my pocket. There was a trace of disappointment in Gavin's eyes, urged by the assistant behind him. Gavin turned and left. "What second and mark it? Isn't this chick made by you? You spent a whole week not slacking off, and just making this." The colleague beside me has a good relationship with me in the company. But there is a problem: she has a particularly loud voice. It is said that it is because she helped her family set up a barbecue stall in Hodgson's childhood and got used to it. Shh. You're bringing up the wrong topic. I quickly covered her mouth, looking at Gavin's direction with my peripheral vision. It seemed that he didn't notice. Only then did I feel relieved and let go of the hand covering her mouth. Woman. You have successfully attracted the attention of the domineering president. The woman who regained her right to speak gave me a wicked smile. Don't. The domineering president is not suitable for small people like us who earn 500 yuan a month. The chair slid back to my workstation. I leaned back on the chair and stared at the ceiling in a daze. The hand in my pocket stroked the fluffy little parrot. Is the little parrot you sewed still there? Sure enough. Gavin immediately sent a message as soon as work ended. I donated it to the flea market during the company's public welfare activity before. Fortunately, I had thought of the wording long ago. For a long time, I didn't wait for Gavin's reply. I know the importance he attaches to that little doll. We used it as a token when we agreed to meet before. But I donated it easily. He should be very angry. Suppressing the inner disappointment, I got into the quilt early and went to sleep. If I sleep, I won't think about it. The next day, I appeared in the company with 2 huge dark circles under my eyes. The face recognition system almost didn't recognize me. Recently, our boss has had a stroke of luck and connected with the Gu family's resources. He is so busy all day that he is hardly ever seen. I comfortably take a nap at my workstation. Suddenly, a shadow covered my head. The colleague beside me gently kicked me a few times under the table. I opened my eyes blankly and looked up just in time to meet those beautiful eyes. The sleepiness was scared away all at once. Gu. Gavin, can you sell me your Kaikain? Gavin looked at me intently, making me feel creepy. That's second-hand. If you like it, Gavin, you can find a similar one at. The more I spoke, the softer my voice became. I didn't even dare to look into Gavin's eyes. 100,000. Not only me, but also the onlookers who pricked up their ears to eat melons gasped. It's not a matter of money. My mind was racing, trying to find a more grandiose sounding reason. 200,000. Gavin didn't blink and continued to bid. There seemed to be a heavy object falling behind. The colleague who struggled to get up from the ground pinched my clothes. From her eyes, I seemed to be able to feel the words she was about to blurt out. I quickly took out the Kaikain from my pocket. Deal. Gavin took the fluffy little parrot from my hand satisfactorily, and gave me a meaningful smile. I forced myself to return a smile of thanking the sucker. Transfer the money to the Sally's account later. The assistant's surprised eyes shifted back and forth between me and Gavin. The people around Gav are efficient. Before the lunch break was over, I received a text message from the bank. Income of 200,000 yuan. But I couldn't smile at all. Maybe I should take the money and find a school gate to sell grilled sausages. If there are no accidents, I will never meet Gavin in my life. Thanks to Gu's family's matchmaking, we won the big project in Dongkanj. The boss, citing high blood pressure and discomfort on airplanes as reasons, asked me to accompany Gavin on a business trip. Sally, I've heard about it. Gavin spent 200,000 to buy a Kaikain from you. The boss stroked his non-existent beard and smiled at me like a weasel that had stolen a chicken. Well, Gavin's actions are indeed maverick. I avoided his increasingly gossipy eyes and said calmly without changing my expression. Perform well on this trip. Gavin can spend 200,000 to buy a Kaikain from you, which shows that he is rich and naive. As long as he is happy, future cooperation will not be a problem. Who are you saying is rich and naive? I blurted out to the still chattering boss. My voice stinged with anger, leaving aside Gavin's identity. He is my white moonlight. Under the boss's suspicious gaze, I bit the bullet and rounded off my words. Insulting the financial backer is asking for retribution. The weasel suddenly realized. Yes. I was hasty. Under the envious gazes of all the female colleagues in the project team, I got into Gavin's car and rushed to the airport. Sally also likes watching birds? Gavin on the side was flipping through the documents in his hand and seemingly casually opened his mouth. The driver in front, upon hearing the ambiguous words from his boss, trembled and the car deviated from the lane. Old Wang. Don't listen to what you shouldn't listen to. Gavin's tone was still indifferent. The partition in the front row slowly rose. Huff. You can just call me Sally. Yes. I like watching birds. Then I embarrassed closed my mouth. Chinese culture is extensive and profound. This damn double entendre. Well, my wife also likes it. She even made a cane for me that is exactly the same as yours. Sally. Closing the document. Gavin turned his head and looked at me. At the moment our gazes collided. I quickly averted my eyes. That's really a coincidence. After that, neither Gideon nor I spoke. The atmosphere fell into an eerie awkwardness. The driver broke the silence through the intercom. Gavin. We're here. I got out of the car first and helped the driver take the luggage out. Gavin took the luggage and walked in front on his own, keeping a distance from me as if avoiding suspicion. I stood in the quaying crowd and looked at the waiting area covered with a red carpet not far away. The special commissioner came forward and took Gavin's luggage. A cold and straight figure disappeared from my field of vision. People are divided into different classes. I took my boarding pass and slowly moved towards the tail of the plane with the crowd. The front row passengers had an argument with the flight attendant over luggage. The line came to a halt. I happened to be stuck next to Gavin's seat. The back of my hand touched a warm and soft sensation. I looked down and my gaze collided with Gavin's. His tawny eyes were as deep as an unfathomable spring. My heart skipped a beat. He beckoned a flight attendant and pointed to the empty seat beside him. Upgrade this lady's seat. Although Gavin didn't communicate with me again on the way, a woman's sixth sense told me that he seemed to know something. I endured until the plane landed as if sitting on pins and needles. The project leader in Dongkand was already waiting outside the airport. Gavin, we have arranged a hotel for you. Why don't we go and rest first and have a meal together in the evening? Gavin nodded. He has always been aloof and sparing with words, but he is very talkative online. Could he be a split personality? In just a few seconds, countless scenes flashed through my mind. Following behind Gavin, my thoughts drifted further and further away. I didn't even notice when he stopped. I directly bumped into Gavin's back. The hard muscles under the suit made me feel for a moment that my nose was about to break. Sorry, Gavin. I was distracted. I covered my sore nose. Physiological tears gushed out of my eyes. What a man as hard as steel. Gavin looked back at me with a somewhat different look in his eyes. Does Sally have something to feel guilty about? I forced a smile. No. You're overthinking. Gavin raised an eyebrow and continued walking out of the airport. I opened the passenger door first and distanced myself from Gavin. The phone in my bag vibrated. I took out the phone from my bag. But the screen was empty. The vibration was still coming from deep inside the bag. Only then did I realize that I had taken out my work phone. Without suspecting anything else, I took out another phone from my bag. The note of the chat box popped up on the screen. Baby husband. Are you working overtime? Wife? I've been a bit busy recently, and haven't chatted with you. Aren't you angry? Baby. I always have a feeling that you are very close to me. I put the phone in my pocket. In the silent compartment. The vibration sound was particularly prominent. Gavin sitting in the back row spoke in a deep voice. Aren't you going to reply to the message? What if it's something important? The moment our gazes met through the rearview mirror, I could be sure that he already knew who I was. I smiled inferently. Just a pesky suitor. The temperature around suddenly dropped. I shivered, thinking the air conditioner was broken. Don't you like him? There's no novelty anymore. I shrugged and smiled inferently. Gavin's face completely darkened. Not liking someone but still leading them on is called being a slag. Cold sweat on my back had soaked through my shirt. I tightly clasped my hands together. In this world, who doesn't keep a few backups? The phone became quiet again. I glanced at Gavin in the back row out of the corner of my eye. He was looking at the scenery speeding by outside the window. There seemed to be a trace of sadness in his eyes. It was fun to argue for a moment. But when I calmed down, I was stupid enough to cry. Leaving aside the fact that Gavin is an influential figure in the Beijing social circle, while I'm just an ordinary worker at the bottom, there is no intersection between us anyway. But he is still a god in the eyes of our boss. What if he goes back and says a few words about me to the boss? Won't I definitely lose my job? At this moment, the boss's call came in. Sally, is everything okay with Gavana? I swallowed hard. It's fine. That's good. If we can win this project, you will be the top contributor of the company. The boss, who is as cunning as a weasel, starts to draw pie for me. Suddenly, he changes the topic. If something goes wrong, you know what I mean, right? After hanging up the phone, I seemed to see the tragic situation of me being unemployed in the future, unable to pay the rent and being kicked out by the landlord and living on the street. He who tied the bell must untie it. I decided to find Gavin and make things clear. One day as husband and wife means 100 days of kindness. After calling me wife for 2 years, you can't be so heartless, right? Standing at Gavin's door and muttering a few words, I summoned up my courage and knocked on his door. After a while, Gavin opened the door in a bathrobe, leaning lazily against the doorframe, with his hair still dripping water. Is Sally here to check on the spare tire? He had a half smile. When did you know? I got straight to the point. At this moment, it's more important to keep my job. Gavin took my wrist and pulled me into the room and pressed me against the wall. Looking down at me, he said, "Guess?" The warm breath blew on my neck, making it numb and itchy. The distance between us gradually shortened. I reached out and put my hand against his chest. The intention was to refuse, but the loose bathrobe belt loosened, and my hands were against his warm skin. Under my hands, I seemed to be able to feel his strong pulse. The atmosphere suddenly became ambiguous. Gavin curled up the corners of his mouth and smiled charmingly. Is Sally so proactive with every spare tire? My patience finally reached its limit. Are you being sarcastic endlessly? Even though this person in front of me is Gavin, who is all-powerful in the Beijing circle. But in essence, he is still the person who has had an online relationship with me for 2 years. We have said all kinds of naughty words. Seeing my anger rising, Gavin, who was still putting on airs just now, instantly put on a wronged expression. Is there really a spare tire? I awkwardly turned my head aside. No. Gavin looked at me suspiciously. I was stared at so much that I felt nervous and angry. What do you think I am? Is the trust between people so fragile? Gavin poked my face in motion for me to turn my head. On the coffee table was lying that tender yellow parrot keychain. It was bought by Gavin for 200 yuan. I laughed awkwardly a few times, and looked at Gavin sincerely. This was made by me personally. My fingers were almost pricked like a sieve by you. A coquettish woman has the best luck. Gavin immediately lost his arrogance and took my hand in distress. Don't do it next time. I looked shy and nodded. Then you're not angry anymore, right? Gavin sighed and helplessly rubbed my hair. I breathed a sigh of relief. Then you have a good rest. I'll go back first. As soon as I took a step, I was pulled back by Gavin again. He narrowed his eyes and scanned me dangerously. You didn't come to me just because you were afraid that I would ask your boss to fire you, did you? I looked up in surprise. Is it so obvious? Gavin sneered. His strong arm was around my waist, and his voice was gritted. Why don't you stay tonight? We can have a long talk all night. Is it the long talk, I think? I covered my chest and took a few steps back. Although you are my big client, I don't accept unspoken rules either. The veins on Gavin's forehead twitched. He threw me out of the door by himself. Looking at the tightly closed door, I was puzzled. He wasn't so easy to get angry before. My parents have always been strict with me. At home, it is never allowed to keep any furry pets. Enduring like this until senior 3. After night self-study, I walked home alone. A faint chirping sound came from the bushes by the roadside. Curiosity drove me to push aside the bushes. Under the crisscrossed branches, a lump of tender yellow came into view. It was an injured parrot. This kind of bird that has been raised since childhood has no ability to survive in the wild. Perhaps it was because I was too lonely. Or perhaps it was because I couldn't bear it. I gently wrapped it with a handkerchief and brought it back to my room, avoiding my parents' sight. From then on, a little touch of tender yellow added luster to my boring life. The little bird was very obedient and knew to hide when someone entered the room. After I finish the college entrance examination, I will take you far away, under the desk lamp. I gently stroked the soft feathers of the little bird and promised. But after the first mock exam, when I got home, I couldn't find that little tender yellow figure no matter how hard I looked. For the first time, I questioned my parents. They still had that superior look. The head teacher said that your grades have dropped by 10 points this time. Playing with things can lead to loss of ambition. That bird. I let it go. The college entrance examination is coming soon. Don't think about these messy things. I rushed into the rainy night to look for it regardless of the obstruction. Finally, I found its dilapidated body in a bush. The tender yellow feathers were stained with dirt and soaked by the rain. In a mess, I buried it under that bush. That rainy night, I lost my only friend. That night, I had a high fever. After being given an injection to reduce the fever by the family doctor, I went back to school again. From then on, I, who was already not talkative, became even more taciturn. After the college entrance examination, I changed the major filled in by my parents, and went to the city farthest from home. My father was furious, and my mother was deeply distressed. Looking at their painful expressions, I suddenly felt a little pleasure. This is just 1/10,000th of the pain I have endured. They forced me to repeat a year of school, but I refused. Holding the admission notice, I stole the household register and went to register at the university alone. Working part-time to earn money for school. Living a tight life materially. But finally my soul gained freedom. Even so, I still didn't have the courage to keep a bird again. Until I saw Gavin's bird online. It was exactly the same as the one I picked up. Under some strange impulse, I added Gavin as a friend. At first, I really just wanted to see the bird. After being well behaved for 20 years, the newly liberated soul was crazily breeding strange feelings. So, Gavin became my online love interest. The repressed nature of the past 20 years was completely released. We said good morning to each other every morning, and confided in each other late at night. But I never expected that we might have a chance to meet. I lay in bed, unable to sleep. The mobile phone beside me was silent all night. I turned off the alarm clock by my pillow that had lost its effectiveness. Exhausted, I got up and went downstairs to have breakfast. At the elevator entrance, I met Gavin in a suit and leather shoes. Unlike me, who seemed to be drained of energy, he still looked like a refreshing elite scumbag. I gave him a contemptuous look and muttered to myself in secret. If you scold me again, I'll tell your boss that you harassed me at night. I covered my mouth in panic. Did I accidentally scold out loud? Gavin chuckled and took a step back to hold my wrist. We're even. The elevator opened, and Gavin led me downstairs together. Having physical contact with him directly for the first time, my cheeks couldn't help but flush. But I didn't refuse him. Gavin seemed to have noticed my attitude too. The hand holding my wrist moved down and interlocked with mine. In the restaurant, Gavin thoughtfully made a sandwich for me and asked the kitchen to squeeze a glass of orange juice. In the past 2 years, every breakfast I sent to him was of this specification. His familiar way was as if we were really a couple in love for many years. Don't you get tired of eating the same breakfast all the time? After I showed him the same breakfast for a month in a row, Gavin couldn't help but ask me, Because I'm loyal, I said half-jokingly. I still didn't change the menu in the following month. Is it really not boring? It's just that my parents said that food only needs to meet daily needs. Excessive sensory enjoyment can make people decadent. So I've long been used to an unchanging menu. Gourmet desires are sinful in my growth process. Later, Gavin would take pictures of delicious food from various countries for me from time to time. And sometimes he would even attach recipes. The amount of seasonings is accurate to grams. Out of curiosity, I tried a few times. Gavin turned me, who was a strange and withdrawn person in others' mouth, into a normal person who can integrate into society little by little through the screen. If only he were an ordinary person. As I ate the breakfast on the plate, a trace of bitterness welled up in my heart. These days, I accompanied Gavin to meet clients. Inevitably, I had to go to some social occasions. The developer in Dong and organized a gathering. When I entered and saw the wine piled up into a small tower on the table, an ominous premonition rose in my heart. Gavin, Sally, you really kept us waiting. You have to drink 3 glasses as a penalty first. The red-faced man came staggering over, holding a goblet. Obviously, he was already quite drunk. Gavin didn't need to cater to others' status. So naturally no one dared to make things difficult for him. So the battle shifted to me. The wine glass was almost stuffed into my mouth. I couldn't resist and drank a few glasses of Baiyue. Gavin frowned and tried to stop me. I refused him first. Thank you for your kindness, Gavin. It's okay if I drink a little. My relationship with Gavin is ambiguous. Accepting his help is tantamount to making enemies for myself. When there is another cooperation next time, the targeting against me will be even more severe. As the alcohol entered my bloodstream, a burning sensation came from my stomach. My eyes gradually became unfocused. I could even feel a restless hand rubbing maliciously on my back. Sally can't handle it anymore? I'll have someone send you back to your room. A hand held my arm, and I was pulled into a solid and warm embrace. President Xu. It's not appropriate for several men to drink around a little girl. I'll accompany you. Gavin's voice was imposing without anger. The man opposite instantly sobered up a bit. I didn't expect Gavin to be so protective. I wonder if Sally is your girlfriend. The hand around me tight and even more. How do you know she isn't? The previously noisy round table fell into silence. Gavin darkened his face and swept his sharp gaze over everyone. President Xu must have drunk too much and his mind is not clear. As for the contract matter, let's talk about it later. Then, Gavin half carried me out of the private room. I patted his shoulder anxiously. Hey. No, did you just ruin the contract with one sentence? Gavin didn't speak. His face was extremely gloomy and terrifying. My survival instinct told me that it's better to keep my mouth shut now. He stuffed me into the car and Gavin told the driver to return to the hotel. Have the kitchen make a hangover soup and send it to my room. Gavin notified the front desk through the room's internal line. Soon, a hangover soup was delivered to the room door. Drink it, or you'll have a headache tomorrow. Gavin's face was still unkind. Are you really not considering this investment? I stirred the soup in the bowl and tentatively asked. I can give you a better project. That's not what I mean. Fearing that he might think my motives were impure, I waved my hands in succession. Gavin grabbed my hand. I can give you anything you want. Why won't you trust me just once? I was stunned for a few seconds. My already alcohol-blurred mind directly crashed. Gavin, are you confessing to me? Did you become smarter after drinking a little? Gavin pinched my face and shook his head helplessly. But you are powerful and influential. And I'm just an ordinary worker. We're not suitable. I tried to persuade him with my own logic. Gavin raised an eyebrow. If it's not suitable, why do our chat records add up so much? How do you know? I tilted my head in confusion. Gavin proudly opened the mobile phone network disk. Because I saved them. I was speechless. Gavin reached out and gently pulled me into his arms. Sally. No one is more suitable than us. Identity and status are external things. I didn't bring them when I was born, and I can't take them away in the future. His chin rested on the top of my head, and his voice was dull and firm. Keep believing in me. Okay? Like before. Perhaps it was the influence of alcohol. Or perhaps his embrace was too warm. I nodded in a daze. Gavin held my face and kissed me gently, as if treating a precious and fragile object. I tried to respond to him. The atmosphere was extremely ambiguous. The last rational string in my mind broke. The alcohol evaporated between us and became the best accelerant. After a long time, the charming atmosphere in the room gradually calmed down. Gavin dialed the internal line again. Soon, a new cup of hangover soup was sent up. Drink it. His voice still had a hint of hoarseness. I was all red and shrank under the quilt, reaching out a hand to take the cup from his hand. It must be that I drank too much. The project in Donk ended in failure due to Gavin's personal reasons. No matter how much General Manager Zhu apologized, Gavin still went to the airport without looking back. Before long, the news that General Manager Jim had offended Gavin spread. Many enterprises, in order to avoid suspicion, would rather pay liquidated damages and terminate their cooperation with him. I heard that General Manager Zhu was flirtatious with the future Sally, which made Gavin angry. Isn't Gavin always impartial between public and private affairs? Sally. Wait a minute. When you accompanied Gavin on this business trip, did you see the future Sally? I quickly passed by with a cup of coffee but was still caught. One cannot underestimate the explosive power of onlookers. I don't know. Gavin went back to his room after work every day and didn't even talk to me. He was very aloof. Seeing that they couldn't get anything out of me, my colleagues dispersed like birds and beasts. Just after sending off a group of onlookers, the boss rushed in hurriedly again. Sally. Is the contract for Donk really ruined? Looking at his devastated appearance, I still nodded cruelly. The boss's chubby body staggered, and he was about to fall as his feet gave way. In a lost end state, he looked like an unlucky weasel whose old hen had been snatched away. This huge wealth was finally not caught. Just as I was about to comfort him, the sound from the gate attracted everyone's attention. A beautiful young lady wearing a finely tailored professional suit pushed open the company gate. Following behind her was Gavin, who had been at the center of gossip these days. So beautiful. She must be Gavin's girlfriend. Gavin was angry for the beauty. He's even more handsome. There were whispers all around. I opened the makeup mirror behind my phone case. Actually, I'm not bad either, right? The boss reacted and quickly got up to welcome them. Gavin, I'm really sorry about the project in Donkange. Look, shall we go to the conference room first? Gavin handed the things in his hand to the beautiful young lady beside him and followed my boss into the conference room. When I was still confused, the beautiful young lady walked up to me in the astonished eyes of everyone. Sally. I am Gavin's secretary. This is the project contract prepared by Gavin for you. If you think there is no problem, please sign here. I was immediately petrified on the spot. No wonder Gavin winked at me secretly before entering the conference room. And he said he didn't hold a grudge for me saying he was a backup? There was silence all around. The secretary softly reminded me to sign, and then walked into the conference room with the documents. The moment the door closed, my colleagues around rushed towards me like a flood. What does it mean? Are you Sally? No wonder Gavin spent 200 yuan to buy the keychain you made. So it's a kind of flirtation. Sally, you're a bit treating us as outsiders. Were you a dead warrior in your previous life? Your mouth is so tight. My colleagues talked one after another, making my head buzz. I cursed Gavin thoroughly in my heart. Finally, when I was on the verge of collapse, the door of the conference room opened. The boss's face was flushed, and he rushed up to me like stepping on wind and fire wheels. Sally. Oh no. Sally. I was so blind that I didn't recognize you. I twitched the corner of my mouth and glared at Gavin. The culprit. Gavin has given us the project in Zicking. Thank you for your appreciation. Sally. The boss was almost in tears and patted the back of my hand warmly. I still have something to say to my wife. Is it convenient? Gavin held my hand and asked for my boss's opinion. Convenient. Of course it's convenient. Seeing my unfriendly look, Gavin put on a round look again. Did I affect your work? What do you think? I gritted my back teeth and uttered a sentence. What work? No one is working today. The boss slapped the table and pretended not to see. Me? That's good. Let's go. Gavin nodded with satisfaction and pulled me away from the company. Colleagues who were inexplicably on vacation sent congratulatory messages one after another. Sally. Come and play with Gavin often when you're free. Sally. You are my god. If Gavin is willing. Can he acquire our company? No other meaning. I just want to eat dog food. Gavin took me on a winding journey up the mountain. The vehicle stopped in front of a beautiful villa in the mountains that was like a garden. This is. I pointed at the closed gate. This doesn't look like a restaurant. It's a gift for you. See if you like it. Hearing this, my knees went weak. Gavin quickly supported me and put a bright red real estate certificate in my hand. We can raise whatever you want in the future. Gavin led me through the gate. The Chinese-style corridor is surrounded by blooming hydrangeas. In the courtyard not far away, the chirping of birds can be faintly heard. Truly a scene of singing birds and fragrant flowers. You can keep a lot of parrots here. Although it's not the one you had before, new memories can fill the pain of the past. Gavin stretched out his hand, and the little bird that was originally perched on the branch immediately flapped its wings and flew into his palm. He took my hand and, like performing a magic trick, took out a handful of millet. The little bird happily jumped onto my palm. Fluffy and very warm. I will not restrain you. You will always be free. Gavin stroked my cheek. His tone is gentle as water but with a solemn promise. But I still want to ask you to be my Sally. I lowered my eyes, and scalding tears fell and splashed on the back of my hand. Gavin has taken 99 steps forward. Now we are only one step away. He took out a ring from his pocket and knelt on one knee. In the silent space, there are only the two of us. You only need to take one step towards me. But I can't even bear to let you take that step. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the forest, and colorful birds flapped their wings and flew out of the courtyard one after another. I stretched out my hand and let him put the ring on my ring finger. In the midsummer of my childhood, I was drowsy lying among piles of test papers. The rare cool breeze in summer blew in through the window, taking away the heat and soothing my restlessness from doing questions all day. When I opened my eyes, a cloud shining with a light golden light floated across the sky. At this moment, the breeze blowing in the courtyard is just as warm and cool as it was back then. Through the blurred vision of tears, Gavin in front of me is also coated with a halo. Just as fairies Ichia said, my beloved will come to marry me on colorful auspicious clouds. The end. The end. The end. The end. The end.